Good morning. I'm Keith Lieberthal, and this is One Step Ahead. I'm joined by Jim Cramer, founder of TheStreet.com, and we're here to discuss political instability and oil. Jim, this is an interesting moment. Multinational oil companies have sophisticated technology, but very few reserves. National oil companies have over 90% of reserves, but little know-how. Economic logic says the two should work together. Political instability has hindered that cooperation and suppressed infrastructure investment. If you're looking at the multinational corporations, how do they see their future?
I think it depends whether they're located here or whether they're located abroad. I think that there has been, and this is one step ahead, let's be very clear, there has been a decision by many of the worldwide companies that are the national companies that you're talking about to not deal with us. It's subtle. People don't like to talk about it. But a Conoco isn't going to do as well as a Total. We are perceived as pariahs worldwide, and our oil companies are negotiated with much harder than every other oil company. So there's like a tier here. There's the U.S. integrateds, and I think they're discriminated against because of our government's policies. And then there's the other integrateds, and they seem to win far more than their fair share of franchises. And I think it's a way to figure out who has a higher multiple. I'd rather buy an international oil company, even though they screw up, a BP or Royal Dutch or a Total, than a domestic company like a Marathon.
Interesting. So we see a real distinction there.
But it's not talked about. It's not talked about.
It isn't talked about. But common to all of them is the fact those reserves are running low. They're being forced to go to more and more expensive places.
Deeper.
Because of concerns about this political instability. Right. As we look down the line, do we see them essentially moving downstream where they're going to continue to have an advantage? Or do we see them trying to approach these new domestic companies in new sorts of ways?
One of the things I was talking to this week, there's a company called Jacobs Engineering. I've been trying to figure out how to graft on what the CEO was telling me privately and on TV versus this. This is a great time to point it out. The operations that people are trying to do in the for our international is to spend more money refining. And I think that that's obviously very short-sighted. They should spend their money drilling. But a lot of our companies take their cue from Exxon, which has subtly decided to really not do much drilling at all. They don't want to. So
as we look down, are you saying Exxon, is that a smart move? Are they positioning themselves
Exxon's running itself as a bank. Now, Exxon does have a lot of $2 oil in the ground. They can afford to. But to take your cue from Exxon is cataclysmic because Exxon happens to be, by nature of the Standard Oil heritage, the only one of these companies that can actually be in the room of the national company. Your breakdown of nationals versus the IOCs, versus the domestic, the multinational oil companies, is again two-tiered. There's Exxon and there's everybody else. Yet people take their cue from Exxon.
Jim, give me the company that you think is best positioned to take advantage and why.
Total, because the French are historically apolitical and not American. Total is a unique company. I've been comparing it in my writing in realmoney.com and Mad Money to the French Foreign Legion. It's willing to go anywhere at any time, and it's also willing to risk employees, have them die, in order to be able to triumph for oil. That's not an American way.
Bet on the French. We'll be back in a moment to talk about national oil companies. Stick around.